Animados.
É isso aí, já é quinta-feira, segundo dia de
Coisa bem
THC.
boa.
Bem, aqui já apareceu live em YouTube. Tá tudo certo por aí, Vitor? Lucas?
Pronto, tudo certo. Só copiar o link e colocar no...
Lá no Crably, por
Isso.
favor.
Beleza.
Vocês sabem que eu estou gostando desse negócio de fazer congressos online, mas brasileiro é azarado mesmo, né? Porque o Triple Helix já foi na Rússia, China, mas não sei aonde. Justo no ano que ele é no Brasil, que a gente não precisa viajar, ele é online, né? Então, falei, pô, não acredito nisso.
Maurício, realmente, a gente também, na hora que estava organizando, pensou a mesma coisa, né? Ó, só porque estão aqui na pandemia, é que assim, né? Quando a gente ficou sabendo do evento ano passado, a gente tinha altas expectativas que em junho seria semipresencial, né? A gente estava imaginando, vai ter vacina, a população vai estar, de certa forma, já imunizada, né? A gente vai conseguir fazer um semipresencial. Estamos aqui. Quem sabe numa próxima oportunidade.
Eu só espero que quando for no Japão seja online também, ou pelo menos a opção online, né?
Então, eu acho que agora a tendência é que esses eventos comecem a ficar numa plataforma mais blended, né? Então, para quem está lá, realmente vai ter um conteúdo presencial, mas para grande geral, até para evitar viajar e tudo mais conteúdos digitais, realmente.
Eventos híbridos, né?
Uhum. Essa acho que é uma das tendências, inclusive, dos próximos anos. Inclusive, acho que a gente ainda está discutindo isso, mas provavelmente o SciBiz do ano que vem também vai ser no modelo híbrido. Justamente até para fazer uma maior atração de pessoal, né? Ao invés de ficar só em São Paulo, a gente expande América Latina, Globo, e aí vamos.
Eu acho que isso é bacana, porque você internacionaliza, você faz mais rede. É claro que o presencial não tem coisa melhor, né? Porque você vai lá, que nem esse momento aqui, não tem o cafezinho, tá conversando com
Exato, né?
ninguém.
Aquele coffee break ali com pãozinho de queijo.
Aliás, sabe que foi uma coisa interessante? Eu fui em Londres, acho que foi 2013, 14, alguma coisa assim, acho que foi 13, o Triple Helix. E lá conheci uns brasileiros, obviamente. E uma das pessoas que eu conheci lá, a gente montou um grupo de pesquisa, está até hoje com um grupo de pesquisa, né? Então, isso que é legal, a gente fazer esse network. Mas a gente faz aqui, né? Mas o interessante é assim, que nem eu vi a Isa já estava aí, acho que o Davi também, e a gente tudo quietinho, né? Fica esperando alguém falar.
Bom dia, Felipe, tudo bom?
Presencial é incomparável, né? Mas eu
Presencial
acho
é
que a gente está
incomparável.
aprendendo ainda.
Novos tempos, novas demandas, né?
Não
Vamos
sei se
torcer para
alguém
que
de
o próximo
vocês tem.
ano tudo aconteça presencial, né?
Mas eu não sei se alguém de vocês tem filho pequeno na escola ou não. O meu ainda não voltou para a escola porque a gente achou melhor ele não ir ainda. Né? Nem todo mundo da família foi vacinado. Mas o menino está sofrendo demais.
Imagino.
Tenho amigos com filhos. E assim, toda conversa de final de semana, que é aquele get-together do pessoal. Pessoal, criança gritando do lado, ele, tô ficando louco, eu não aguento mais.
Aliás, coisas interessantes nessas online é criança entrando na sala, gato passando no teclado, né? Aliás, gato é uma coisa assim fantástica, né? O que aparece de gato, brincadeira.
Olha, eu tenho 6 gatos em casa.
Uau.
Só que, por sorte, eu tenho um home studio, que é onde eu tô agora. Então, eu me fecho aqui e aí eu boto esse fundo, né? Então, não dá para ver eles passando por trás. Mas
Eu
são
tenho 2
6.
gatos.
Eu tenho um também, mas assim, quando a gente está no computador, em sessão e tudo, aí eu geralmente deixo a porta encostada, porque se a porta estiver encostada, ele sabe que não é para ele chegar. Porque senão ele sobe na cama, ele fica
educado.
Os meus não, eles fazem questão. Se eles sabem que não.
Olá, bom dia.
Bom dia.
Bom dia, Felipe, tudo bom?
Bom
Tudo
dia.
bem? Tem alguma coisa que a gente precisa fazer antes da sessão?
Olá,
Testar?
Acho que cortou.
Precisamos fazer alguma coisa antes de começar? Hey, Fábio. Good morning.
Ciao. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, y'all.
Hello.
So now it's 8:57. In 3 minutes, we can start. I'm going to do a quick introduction. I am Isabella, Master of Ceremony of this event, and then we can start. I'm going to announce you.
Isabella, do you have any idea how many people will be in the session, more or less?
I'm not sure, maybe Jefferson knows. Because we are broadcasting to YouTube and here at Zoom.
Okay. Because I will do some online polls and
Okay.
but people who are, I mean, maybe I will just need to give them, you're broadcasting live, right?
Yes.
So maybe I'll just need to give them a little bit more time to get the answers. May
That's
I
a
just
number.
try sharing my screen to see everything's working?
Yeah.
Now we have almost 30 people watching you.
Yes.
Number.
Okay. Can you
It's
see the
working.
screen?
Yes.
Super. So I will use the poll everywhere. So,
Cool.
so I will kind of, some people may have the app, but if they don't, they can just scan the QR code, or they can go to the website which is at the top of the slide. So maybe, Isabella, if you could, copy that address and put in the chat.
Okay, absolutely.
When I show this, just in case some people have difficulties. Will they have the cameras on? So is it a webinar or is it a meeting format?
This is a meeting format,
Okay.
but I guess we're just like 10 people here at Zoom. Most of people are watching at YouTube. Okay, so hello, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome all to the second day of the Triple Helix Conference. I am Isabella Pesci. I'm a journalist and master of ceremony of this event during all this week. And we start our activities today with the dialogue session, which the title is INEO's Innovability. At this moment, we kindly ask that only the keynote speakers leave the camera on. And we welcome Professor Dr. Felipe Monteiro from INSEAD and Fábio Tentori, Head of INEO Innovation Hubs. Welcome all, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Isabel. Good morning for those of you in the Americas. Good afternoon. If there are other people like me and Fábio who are in Europe, maybe some people joining from Asia, is going to be already evening. We are delighted to be today with you, and Fábio Tentori, who is also in the call there, he'll join the conversation in a few minutes. The plan is the following. I will start, imagine 3 moments here. I will start with some background on NL and show you some slides. I will also ask you some questions that you can answer via poll everywhere. I will show you the details of how to access the online survey. So that's moment number one. Then moment number two, I will invite Fabio to discuss some few points about his trajectory, what he's currently doing at NL, what are some of the future challenges that he anticipates. And at the end, I will open another online poll where you can ask any questions to us. So without further ado, so my name is Felipe Monteiro. I'm professor here at INSEAD in Fontainebleau. And the conversation today is about this case I wrote a couple of years ago. And I would like to start asking you one question. So could you please go to the address you see on the top of the slide, or if you have your cell phone, you can just scan the QR code that you see in the screen. If any of you has the Poll Everywhere app, you just need to log in using my username, which is Monteiro, my last name. And as you do this, as you kind of either go to the browser with the URL, which you can see on top of your slide, and I believe that Isabel will put it also on the chat, and or if you want to scan the QR code, it should take you to this page. So,
it is working.
Sorry?
It is working. It's on chat, and I have tested. It's working.
Okay, great. So I will wait to get some answers there. So at the moment, I don't have any. So Isabel, feel free to answer you too, so I can see that is working from here. And yeah, so I see there is one answer too. So let me give you more time, and maybe let me also show you again the QR code. So that's the QR code. You just need to scan it or use the link that Isabel shared with you. So let me show, there are a few of you here. So some of you are familiar, some of you not familiar at all. And I think it is and now someone who is very familiar, so we have everything there. So I think my intention of asking you this question is basically to give a background for those of you who are not very familiar with NL. It is simply one of the largest utilities in the world, as you can see in the slide, right? The first network operator, kind of the world's largest private player in renewables. So really a very strong and kind of global company in the energy space and very strong in renewables. So that's one thing that I'd like you to remember. The second one is, as you compare them with other large players, you see that in terms of both EBITDA per business line, but also when you compare their EBITDA with the other European peers. And it was kind of the largest one. So what I think is interesting for us to discuss today is not only what they do, but the impact that this may have the whole industry, given that they are the leaders. So the topic of the case, however, is less about NL and how big it is. It is a very specific angle in that case, which I believe speaks directly to the topic of this conference, which is how do you combine innovation and sustainability? And so NL created its own jargon for that. So they create an area called NL's innovability. And what I would like to go and show you, you may look at NL's headquarters in Rome, and maybe you look at this, this is a traditional utility company. You may not think about all the innovation that is going on there. In reality, there's a lot of innovation going there. I'll skip this, and I would kind of encourage you to take a look at this article that was published last year at Economist, which also gives an idea of how NL has been leading the Europe's climate change, or the transformation of the energy industry for a more sustainable future. So I think in that context, it is what really matters and what really is going to be the topic of our conversation today with Fabio, because the environment in the energy sector probably is not surprising to any of you familiar with the industry. You have a number of forces pushing that sector to be more sustainable. And companies like NL have strongly engaged with SDG and right and really committed to reach certain levels in some of the specific SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. But I think what this case is particularly different, right, or a specific take of this case is to show how they're reaching that goal or those goals in terms of sustainability by combining it with innovation. Or you can say in another way, say, no, how innovation can be the tool to reach that sustainability goal. And structurally, organizationally, Enel really put those things together, and they created an area that's called Enel's Innovability. And part of that effort, which is what kind of Fabio leads, is having innovation hubs all over the world. And you can see, for those of you in Brazil, you see right the innovation hubs in Rio and Sao Paulo, with the intent that by having those hubs, they will connect with startups from all over the world, which are really working on more sustainable solutions that Enel can deploy. So you have some figures in the slide. So they have seen more than 6,000 startups, assessed 1,000, more than 250 projects on the way. And I'm sure Fabio may even have more updated figures for that. So if you think about this context, how do you do this? Okay, how, being such a large company, how do you take advantage of the knowledge and the innovation and technologies which are popping up in different clusters around the world? How do you find them? How do you integrate them? How do you make sure that those innovations are really sustaining sustainability for Enel? So this is the context. Let me try again the online poll just to see if more people now can access it. I will generate the QR code again. If you have already answered question number 1, you will see the next question in your screen. But if you have not, let me invite you again to try to scan that code. And this way we can see what is your view on this. I understand that a number of you might be watching this on YouTube, so I'll give you a few seconds more. So if you need to get your phone, or if you're already using a phone for YouTube, maybe you have to go to the browser and go to that poll. So let me go and see. We have a few here, and looks like that, at least in this group, everybody thinks it makes sense to put the two together. But I think the advantage of having a case with the case protagonist is that we can ask and we can talk directly to those who are doing this, leading this. And I'm delighted to welcome Fabio Tentori. So Fabio Tentori, he's the head of those innovation hubs. So you saw all those different dots in different parts of the world. And this is where Enel is. And this is kind of one of the main tasks of Fabio to manage. Fabio is an INSEAD grad. After INSEAD, he went to McKinsey and has had kind of this fantastic career leading the innovation hubs at Enel. So Fabio, maybe we can start. Maybe you can give a little bit of background on your trajectory from kind of business school background, and this conference is organized by a business school, so by university. So that link of how you left INSEAD and then one day joined Enel, and maybe after that you can say a little bit more about what you're currently doing.
Thanks, Felipe, for inviting and for organizing this, and thanks to everybody as well for being here listening. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today. To answer to your question, so I think business school for me, especially INSEAD, was a year of big change. I went in that I was a business analyst in McKinsey, of course sponsored by the company, went to INSEAD, wanted to learn something, came back with a real change in life, because moving in, thinking about finance, thinking about banking, and all of those businesses that were particularly interesting, and they still are, I left that I was, let's say, involved in the energy industry much more. And I also started to have a little bit of a take on how innovation and sustainability are important for the world. This was already 10 years ago. And I would have never guessed that I would have arrived where I am now. Back then, but I left INSEAD with this willingness to change a little bit, what I was doing. Then back in McKinsey, I did apply to many more projects in the energy industry, which I truly believe could be one of the changing factors in our world, together with many others, such as healthcare and many more. But energy needs to be innovated, and needs to be innovated even more to be more sustainable, leaving forever every kind of pollution, carbon, oil, and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I ended up working with Enel. Enel was trying to renovate even more what they were already doing. Enel already had a lot of renewable energy power plants around the world. And when I joined, I saw that from inside in the last 7 years how every decision that has been taken by the group has always been driven by making the energy sector more sustainable. And so leaving gas production, leaving coal production, leaving all of the stuff, and moving more and more, transitioning towards a cleaner, I would say not just cleaner, but just clean energy in itself. This was kind of what brought me into the industry. And then when I was in Enel, as you were saying before, we realized that sustainability, it's the real purpose for an energy company. But then you can only reach real sustainability if you keep innovating, because as you know, like there's a lot to do. Now think about, for example, all of the new things that are coming out now on hydrogen. There is this hype of let's use hydrogen to decarbonize even further. Yes, it is true, but you have to make hydrogen green, because if you produce hydrogen by using gas or coal, then you're not solving the problem. You're just moving the problem in another side of the value chain, which doesn't make any sense. And so all of these things for us are particularly important. We enter into something to make it sustainable, and we know that we need to bring innovation to make it really happen. Green hydrogen at the moment is something difficult, something more expensive than other ways of producing hydrogen. We believe could be one of the technologies of the future, and this is why we are investing more and more to make sure that become greener and greener, so that one day will really be used in order to decarbonize also the harder to abate sectors. And this is just one of the examples, As you know, you studied also our company and how we work. For us, in every decision, every business that we take, that we do, the purpose is always sustainability. But we believe that the tool to make every business sustainable is innovation. We need to keep innovating our business models, need to keep innovating technologies, and need to keep innovating the way that we deliver energy, clean energy to the world.
Thank you, Fabio. And maybe if you could kind of give a couple of examples of what you're currently doing, because I believe a lot of people, especially those not for the sector, can imagine, yes, you're trying to be greener and make sustainability at the core of what we do. Maybe, whatever you can disclose publicly, can you find kind of one or two examples? And maybe later you can even say something about what Enel is doing in this area in Brazil, which I believe a number of the people in the room might be interested.
So two things that could be applicable. I was already talking before about hydrogen, and the fact that we believe that hydrogen needs to become greener. What it means to us is we decided that we are entering in the business of hydrogen. And this is because we believe it's really important to let's say, eliminate the part of pollution that comes from harder to abate kind of emissions, steel manufacturing, and a few other industries that are using a lot of energy that would be difficult to do a direct electrification. And in order to do that, we need to innovate all the technologies and the business model that are behind hydrogen. And the way that we do it is we generate an ecosystem of innovators, startups, venture capitalists, governments, anybody around us and our technical leadership to generate startups, innovations, anything that would help the production of hydrogen to become green, which means producing, like making the hydrolysis more efficient, make it more flexible, make it less costly, and all of the things that you have seen evolving in other industries, in other technologies, such as, for example, solar power or energy storage. We want to replicate the same also for hydrogen. We are generating a center of studies and a laboratory where we can test the technologies in a real environment, because it's a laboratory that will actually produce real green hydrogen. And we are bringing in startups to work with us on specific projects. We put the financing, we get venture capitalists to finance if it's needed. We give expertise, we give the equipment, and at the end of the day, what we try to do in a span of maybe 1 or 2 years, we try to make sure that those technologies reach the level of readiness to be actually commercially deployable in 2-3 years from 3 years from now. This is one example of this is more a technology driven, maybe also early stage kind of example. Another thing, now we're talking in Brazil, no? And one thing that we launched a couple of years ago in Brazil was Urban Futurability, which is our let's say it's a flagship project that we started in Brazil, and we are now moving as well in other cities such as Bogota, for example, and then we're moving it also to other places in Italy and in Spain, where we have a big network. And what we are doing there, we are trying to fully digitalize our network of distribution of electricity, to make it more resilient and stable, to be able to provide better service, more safe service to our customers, make sure that everybody can always have electricity. Electricity for us is like a primary needs. Without electricity, you can't do many things, as you know. And in addition to that, by making it all fully digitalized, we are opening up as well to new business opportunities, because we will generate a lot of data. We will generate new ways to be able to manage the contact between people and electricity, the usage of electricity. And these can create new opportunities for us, for the community, for startups that will work with us, for small, medium enterprises, for anybody that will be part of this fully digitalized network.
And Fabio, maybe a lot of people might be wondering, how do you do this, right, in the COVID world? Because travel disrupted, pandemia, different places. And how do you manage to have this kind of global, and you head of the innovation hubs? How are you doing this in this world now?
The impact has been big, as in everybody's life. We have to say things are going well, compared also to the fact that we had this crisis, and we are still partially in it, depending country by country. What changed completely is the approach to work that we had before. We traveled a lot. Now we're not traveling anymore. You need to give more trust to the people that you're talking to without even meeting them. Digitalization helps a lot. Like, you can reach anybody around the world. In all honesty, in some cases, making these meetings in a digital way allow us to be a little bit more efficient, because instead of, like try to put all the meetings in a couple of days that you're traveling from Italy to Brazil, you can spread them out at the convenience of other people as well to join, so that you can take better decisions. And I think at the end of the day, what this is showing to us is that if you build the right motivation and the right trust in the ecosystem around you, even if you cannot go meet them, you cannot do all the same activities that you were doing before, it still works. Like there is the motivation to do better, there is the motivation to do things, and so things will happen, and maybe you can try to make them happen also faster than it used to be before.
Any view on how different parts of the world are moving faster than others in terms of getting back to, or at this point is still pretty much similar in terms of your innovation hubs?
In terms of the hubs, I have to say that I see like the United States moving super fast as usual. Like that was a clear expectation from the beginning. All the other ecosystems are, it's very difficult because there's no real difference, because in any case, when you're talking about innovation, people are already innovative inside. No? So if you cannot meet, it doesn't really matter. No, we can find a way to do things even without having to be exactly in the same place. I see in some cases when there is a lot of hardware, a lot of equipment that needs to be shipped from one place to another, that might create a little bit of delay, the situation that we are living. But like the progress, the moving forward, the ideation, creation, strategy of the things that we do are working quite well practically in every place.
Yeah, excellent. This is good to hear. I will soon kind of move and see if people have questions either in the room, or I have already opened that poll everywhere again. So for those of you who were using the online poll, feel free to ask questions there. For those of you in this room, feel free to write on the chat or unmute and ask questions. But let me ask the first question, Fabio. Are you optimistic about the future in terms of sustainability? Because I think that the challenge is so huge, right? That a lot of people say, at this point, 2021, right after COVID, how optimistic you are, not only about that Enel will be able to transition, but more broadly the energy sector?
So my opinion is I'm very positive on this. I'm very positive for two reasons. The first one is that I've seen, like in the last 5 years that I actually managed these innovation hubs and startups for Enel, I've seen so many new technologies and business models coming out. Lot of companies, a lot of startups are like coming out every day in the world, also about energy. Like if you would have done this analysis 5 years ago, majority of money would have been going through, like classic e-commerce, fintech. Like now, I really believe that there is a lot more and really a lot more happening in sustainability and sustainability-related matters, or at least for what I see in the energy sector. So that makes me positive, because when there are ideas, sooner or later, the best ideas will get implemented. And the other thing that makes me positive is that it looks like this is something in the last months, but also years, governments, public opinion, and people are moving more and more and more, and now also capital. If you think about that, a lot of capital is invested with ESG, like related kind of investments. So the world is starting to move faster and faster towards those basic concepts of sustainability. So I see more money coming in, and more opportunities coming in, and the combination of all of that with governments that are pushing as well towards that direction will make this happen. Of course, COVID might have created, like a drop in our curve towards the future. That's for sure. The economies of many countries have been impacted as well. But I think we really have like a very big opportunity now as a world to invest more and more in climate change, to invest in making our world more sustainable.
Thank you, Fabio. So I see there's a question. So Rafael is asking you, he's saying, no, he's thanking you for the presentation. And he's saying, no, how startups from Brazil can contact you. So what is the direct way of the Innovation Hub in Brazil working with startups there?
So there is actually an innovation hub in Brazil. There's two. One is a hub, one is a lab, and we kind of play around with the two of them together. So we have a double place, one in Rio and another one in São Paulo, which are also the two biggest cities where we're present as an industrial company. The best way is to reach out to the hub manager, to the local hub manager. You can go on our website, which is startups.nl.com, and you will find the details of how to contact directly our hub manager in Brazil. She is called Lauren, and Lauren will be the best help to, let's say, evaluate the potential collaboration and to introduce also whoever wants to be introduced to the rest of to the right people in the group to evaluate the potential opportunity together.
Thank you, Fabio. I will show again the QR code if other people do the same thing that Rafael did, which was asking via the Polev. I think maybe, Fabiana, I know you have so many countries that you are responsible for, but is there anything that you remember in terms of coming from Brazil, in terms of innovations that were important, incorporated, either locally or globally?
So one thing that I remember well coming from Brazil was like a platform that we've been creating for managing robotics in some of our power plants and on our distribution lines using drones and robots and a basic layer of artificial intelligence on all the data and the images that we got in order to provide opportunities, provide efficiency in I don't know, vegetation management or management of the grid in general. That's something that we did locally in Brazil, and we are now starting to let's say move also to other countries, starting with South America, where the business is sort of similar, and then we'll move also in the rest of the world. That's a very good one. There are also a few other projects that we are doing on electric mobility. There's also some startups that we are working with when it comes to try to digitalize and make it easier our customer service. As you know, like traditional businesses like utilities need to make it more efficient and more digitalized as well, and that's something that we are doing with startups from there as well. But we are not just close to that, anything that comes that could be applicable, we would definitely look into that.
Super, Fabio. So we have here a couple of questions in the chat. So I think Isabel is asking you, how do you think about sustainability in countries where this theme is not part of the agenda? So are there political limits for private companies to act? So how do you push for an agenda when sometimes this is not at the core of the current government?
So if it's not at the core, and if there is anybody against it, there's not really that much that you can do, right? The main thing, the best answer to this, in my opinion, is the fact that for us, sustainability is not just talking about sustainability. No, we embedded sustainability in energy. And what we are doing brings real value. So instead of going and talking about the fact that you could be more sustainable, you could, fight climate change and whatever, we go and demonstrate that if instead of investing in a nuclear power plant, you invest the same amount of money in wind and solar, you will get better results, better returns, and at the same time, you will make the world more sustainable. So this, for example, is something that we do. Of course, there's also a lot of context now with the political agendas, but if there are real limits, the only way that we can answer is by trying to demonstrate that it makes sense also from a business perspective. That for us, especially in energy, it does totally make sense.
And I think, Fabio, thanks for this answer, because it's also, when I was writing the case, it became very clear that more than what you're trying to do is kind of being an advocate for sustainability per se. I think what you are doing is kind of embedding it in the normal way of doing business. So it's not something, right? It's not something separate. It is, you do, so everything you do, kind of sustainability is embedded. So you're kind of just operating for you means, right, that you are. So it somehow is more kind of doing by example than kind of, right, advocating. And it's clear, right, it's easier to find partners when you are in a country where, right, everybody's working the same direction, but many places, right, they are in different speeds on this and different moments. So, right, maybe the best you can do is really just do your business in the most sustainable way, and right, and be a role model. There's another question from Suellen, and she's asking you about how do you see the application of blockchain for innovation towards sustainability?
Everybody talks about blockchain. We haven't found yet at the moment a business case in the energy industry. So I can talk more about that because that's something that I kind of know and I studied. There's not many applications that we see at the moment as very disruptive compared to the current systems. I believe blockchain will help a lot on certain, for example, when you will be able not to track properly where certain electrons have been produced and how they've been produced, and maybe tracking better the value chain and all of that kind of stuff could be absolutely interesting. There's one thing to say that at the moment, blockchain in general is super interesting, super important. There needs to be a little bit more of efficiency as well in the way it's run. I don't know if you know that in order to say mine a coin of, for example, the big bitcoins, you spend so much money in energy, no, and that doesn't really have doesn't justify the impact on the other side. So in the perfect world where energy will be all renewable, all clean and abundant and blah blah, then it's fine. No, otherwise you need to make things a little bit more efficient. I believe so. I think there is a future. I think there will be something coming out that we will use more. Maybe there will be a bit more of peer-to-peer kind of, like exchange of electricity could happen with in the future if we are moving towards energy produced by people, by houses, and less by centralized systems. That's something that could happen, and there would be some applications there for sure.
Well, maybe I can kind of flip that question, saying, what do you see today as, you talked about already about hydrogen. Can you maybe cite one or the two key technologies, enabling technologies, which are pretty hot when it comes to the energy space?
Still a lot on energy storage. because it will give us the real opportunity to, say, cut out completely, the production of energy from fossil sources. That's for sure one big one, even if it has been around for a while. Could be that a little bit more of innovation into solar power could help. At the moment, things have been going particularly well, and solar power is already super like deployable and will continue as it is. But if we are able to innovate it even more, it will be for sure better. And then something maybe more disruptive will be linked to let's say try to like move more and more towards a centralized kind of production of electricity to a more let's say broader and decentralized electricity production, but at the same time being able to make it work, because that's like the big challenge that we have. Is not that you can be completely detached from the grid or detached from everybody else, and so that's where I think there's still a lot of investment that need to go, and then need to come out with solutions that would allow this to become a reality.
Thank you, Fabio. I imagine that I remember when I talked to some of my colleagues who are also academics about the Enel case, Enel broadly, and this conference is really about this cooperation between academia, businesses, public sector. I mean, do you have kind of a couple of examples about how do you Enel cooperate with kind of academic institutions? And I mean, our case is an example of that, but maybe there are others.
Yeah, cases, of course. That's a super interesting collaboration that we did. We do have a few collaborations with universities and academics, sometimes on specific projects. Like we have of course scholarships and that kind of activities with a few universities in the world, and we also do run research projects. One that comes to my mind is related to artificial intelligence that we are doing with a university in the US, but there's many more, right? And usually I would say that we keep the innovation that is already real for the collaboration with startups, small, medium enterprises, innovators in general. And when we go to universities is because we are doing something that is a little bit closer still to research and would try to find an application maybe in the next 3 to 4 years, and not something that is already kind of ready now. Because if it's already kind of ready now, we just do it straight with the startup or with whoever other partner we can find.
And Fabio, maybe my final questions, there are no further questions coming from the audience. Maybe my final question would be more on, some people here are academics, and right, in your example of collaboration might be very helpful for them to see how universities can work with a company like Enel. And you say, no, there's a special place, especially when you think about basic research or research which is not yet in development, right? I believe that some people watching this video are also students, executives, people who kind of look at you and say, wow, interesting career path, MBA, consulting, utilities, now leading that area of the innovation hubs. What kind of advice would you give to people who look and say, I would like to have a career in sustainability and innovation in a large corporation? What kind of the 2 or 3 tips that you can give them?
So first of all, there's a lot of space. As we were saying before, we've seen a lot of innovation happening and more coming out in the next future coming, and also a shift towards sustainability. So if you're thinking about joining either something innovative or something sustainable and make this like the most important thing in your life and in your work, it's the right moment. I personally believe. Best of the best is to look well and make sure that the company you're joining, if you are joining a company, really is devoted to real innovation and real sustainability. There is a lot of marketing around the two concepts, and you need to be quite careful because it's very easy to find yourself in an innovation job where you're asked to run a few things just to create this innovation theater that then doesn't bring real results, but that those kind of jobs are not particularly interesting. And if you don't have a purpose yourself and you don't really bring value, then after a couple of years you might not enjoy that anymore. So that would be the first thing. And also on the other side, if instead you own a company or you already work in a company and you want to make more innovation and more sustainability happen, like focus on how innovation and sustainability can really bring a real value to your business. Here we are not talking about CSR, we are not talking about this stuff anymore. No, we are not talking about financing inclusion, like giving money to somebody because no, it's more like any project that you do. Does it have an impact in terms of sustainability? Yes, and what? Does it have an impact in terms of profit for you, for the community that you're in, for the people around you, for your employees, for your clients? If the answer is yes, then you move forward. If the answer is no, maybe you're better rethinking, no? Because if something doesn't really bring value, at the end of the day, it's going to last only for a few months, maybe a few years, but then at the end it will disappear.
I think this is a very insightful kind of suggestion, recommendation, which is, there's so much which is just, as you said, marketing or externally oriented. And finding a place where you have this adherence between what you really believe and what the company is really doing, not saying that they're doing, I think is fundamental. I think this is all from us. Let me take advantage to kind of thank the organizers of the Triple Helix for this invitation. Personally, let me thank Professor Moacir for inviting Fabio and I. And Fabio, thank you so much. I know kind of we are carving out kind of a very busy agenda. So thanks for kind of finding some time to share this with us. I'm sure not only people who are watching us live, but who will watch us later will benefit a lot from learning more about NL's innovability. Thank you. Back to you, Isabel.
Thanks a lot to you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure. And and I hope between any of you, there will be somebody that will contact us with new ideas. We are eager to listen and to try to, as we said before, to create an impact, to make an impact together.
I would also like to thank Professor Felipe, Fabio, such a rich dialogue. We'll enter now in our break, and afterwards we present the panels from 10 to 11 a.m. Brazilian time. Then at 11:10, we begin the abstract sessions, and we'll meet again here for next dialogue session after the lunch break at 1 p.m. Brazilian time. So see you later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Felipe. Thank you, Fabio. Very nice, really.